We are DPR Construction. This is the field technology team on this Mesa Data Center project.
A project of this scale, we need pretty much an army. It's been a monumental effort to get to where we are today.
This is really just a compilation of all the control that was added to this site over the past 3 years.
We also use reality capture for everything, and we are self-performing all of our field technology. If there was a main takeaway, is that through good teaming, you can do anything.
In 1937, General Motors established its first Arizona test facility on a 5-acre site at 20th Street and Roosevelt. During the decade between 1940 and 1950, Phoenix's population nearly doubled, making it more difficult to test on the public roads. The adverse interaction between increased public traffic and more complex test programs led to the establishment of the Desert Proving Ground in 1953.
To shoot a scene of our new star, and I'd love to introduce you before they begin. Honestly, we're all just bursting with excitement about this brilliant new performer. We think this one will not only win every award hands down, but it's just going to win the hearts of people all over the country. Come on now. I want you to meet a great new star. Isn't that a sight to take your breath away? I declare it looks a mile long. Every detail is so perfectly designed, I just keep looking and looking at it. And I'll tell you something. You can look at it from every possible angle, and you'll still come up with the same answer. It's the best looking in the whole world.
Okay. So did anybody in the audience spy the shirtless surveyor and the old theodolite? Pretty cool, right? I know Josh saw it. In the video you probably heard in 1950, the Phoenix population doubled in size, and this is around the time that my grandfather and grandmother moved to Arizona from South Carolina, and that was because my grandfather worked on the Luke Air Force Base, and he would tell me stories when I was younger on the roads that he would have to take to get there. They were all dirt roads, and I know that he has seen a lot of change in his lifetime, and he's seen a lot of change in Arizona. I know I've seen a lot of change being there my whole life, and I know my children will and their children will. So the reason I bring this up is because what you see on here on the screen, these structures, these buildings that you see here are part of this change that we're seeing in Arizona. And these buildings are going to support our modern day way of living and our modern lifestyles. And so this is what we're dealing with now. Modern technology is driving the needs for data centers. And this presentation is going to revolve around this project, which is Mesa Data Center. We cannot actually tell you the name of the client or the project, so we'll refer to it as Mesa Data Center. Our presentation is field technology at large, and this is because this Mesa Data Center is the largest project in DPR history by volume and several billions. I can't tell you the exact number either, but it's several billion. It is also the fastest built project in the program that it belongs to. So pretty incredible stuff that we're going to talk about today. We are DPR Construction. We are a general commercial contractor. We're approximately $9.6 billion company and have around 12,000 employees. And we're also a self-performing general contractor. And the reason I bring this up is because we are self-performing our field technology efforts now, which includes survey. So the team that you see on the stage here, this is the field technology team on this Mesa Data Center project. And the reason we self-perform a lot of different scopes: drywall, framing, concretes, unit struts, demolition, mass timber. Field technology is another progression of this journey of self-performing to be able to control our schedules, to have better predictability on the labor that we use, to understand our costs better, reduce risk, and drive better quality. So this is why we're doing this. Okay, so this Avengers style kind of a cartoon looking slide here, put together on a plane on the way here, because it really kind of hit me that we're telling a story. Each one of us is telling a story in our journey along this field technology effort on this project, Mesa Data Center. So we broke this up in chapters. I'm going to be chapter 1, which is going to be setting the stage. And then we're going to have chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, and so on forth until we get to the end. So chapter 1. I'm Dustin Ridley, Southwest Region VDC leader for DPR Construction. I do a lot of things at DPR. I do a lot of things for the region and this team. But you're probably wondering, what did I do on this project, this mega project, this multi-million-dollar project? Well, there's some very important things I needed to do outside of taking dorky photos on a job site and pretending I use all this equipment. So what I needed to do, knowing that we were going to have a multi-billion-dollar in our business unit, which our business unit, by the way, by volume, all the combined projects, we normally do less than $1 billion a year. So this is a big deal for us to build a project of this size. And I knew we were going to have to build a sizable team. But I needed to do some research to go understand the program that this project belongs to. I knew I was going to need to build a team and onboard and solve problems. So let's talk about this. What I mean by research. So one of the things I wanted to do was understand who the client was in more detail. I want to understand the program that the client belongs to and the program that we belong to. I wanted to understand the different kind of execution plans on these different projects in this program across our region. So this included our field technology execution plans and our VDC execution plans and our specifications. I talked to different people on these projects and understood the different processes and tools unique to their regions, and really dug into the different innovative opportunities we have on these projects. And what I was able to do after visiting several of these, which these pictures are from my visits to these projects, I was able to bring these lessons learned and build my own plans and strategies for our project specific to our region in Mesa, Arizona. So a very important step into really kind of setting the table or setting the stage to understand what we're about ready to get into. So I knew I was going to need to build a team, a big team, a team bigger than our business unit team from a VDC standpoint. In fact, the admin team on this Mesa Data Center project, the number of people in it is greater in number than our admin team as a business unit. So pretty incredible stuff. But I knew I was going to need to have specific individuals that had the right characteristics and mentality to support our field technology efforts, from survey to layout to QA/QC to quality control with the different tools that we use. We needed a team that can support our massive VDC efforts, which you'll learn about in a little bit, and we needed a team that can support our self-perform work. And most importantly, when building this team, I didn't look necessarily for the technical skill sets. I looked for the right who's, the individuals with positive forward attitudes, the right characteristics that would be a teaming environment. We all work very well together, and this is this way for a reason, because we want people that want to be part of a team organization. So we also onboard everybody that comes into DPR as a new hire. If you're part of my team, you go through additional onboarding because you're part of the VDC team. It's a little bit more technical, and there's more things that we need to talk about beyond general onboarding. However, if you're part of this Mesa Data Center program, you're going to get onboarded there too. So this team went through a trifecta of water hosing of onboarding. So we have to be very thoughtful on how we do this in a way that is not overloading, and also doing it in a way that they forget everything they just learned. So we have to be very strategic on how we do that. So in the beginning, I said my other role was to solve problems. I've been in the industry for a while, so I can put some creative thoughts to how to solve particular challenges like this. For example, when we started the project, the first question was, who's taken photos on 2.6 million square feet of building? That's a massive task for that size of a building. And the leadership asked, well, why can't the VDC team do it? And I was like, well, we could, but that would be our primary responsibility. And let me show you why. So I did the math by placing a dot everywhere. I knew we would need to take a picture from a progress photo documentation using instruction site, which is now Drone to Playground. And I was able to add a time value to all this and show by value and duration of time, this is why our VDC team can't do it. And plus VDC manager there on the right doesn't look very enthused about taking photos all day long. So then we're like, okay, what about the PEs? Can the PEs do it? Well, Mr. PE does not look very amused about taking photos either. And we went through the same round of effort of trying to prove this out. Like, okay, how many PEs can we do this with little impact to their day-to-day job? And we came up with around 35 to 40 PEs. We just need to spend about 45 minutes each daily taking photos, and that just wasn't going to work. Otherwise, we'd have a huge revolt on our project. So that quickly went away. We normally do have our PEs do it, but this project was unique and different. We explored autonomous drone technology. You saw that being talked about yesterday. On the project like this, where it's the fastest built in this program, it just really wasn't safe to use technology like this with the changing conditions every day. We also looked at robotics with drone deploy, and though that was a very interesting solution that we probably could have explored, it was too late of a conversation, and we didn't have budgets built in to procure this kind of equipment. So that was a no-go. We even considered site cameras, but our client is not okay with that. So we're not doing site cameras. So what do you do? Well, it turns out the solution was in front of us the whole time: GC labor. And this is becoming more of a thing where when you look at tech solutions versus how you utilize labor, we got to be very thoughtful on that. So what we chose to do was pull 4 or 5 GC labor resources, train them how to use Struction Site. They got attached to the field technology team, and they developed these skill sets. And this really enabled us to take photos every day, all day, for 5 days a week for a couple of years, which amounted to over 100,000 photos that we have on this project. And this enabled us to utilize these photos to compare it to the schedule from a production tracking standpoint and analyze the photos for any kind of safety issues or quality observations we need to address. And it's as-built for us that we can use at closeout. And just to make sure we weren't taking photos for the sake of it, we also wanted to analyze, are people actually looking at the photos? And up there on the right, you see that peak. We're just completely off the charts in terms of like viewership. So we knew people were using these photos. In fact, some of our trade partners on site were heavy users of these photos to verify what was being installed as part of the model. So that was validating for us, and the unique problem solving went back to a simple solution, which was GC labor. With that said, I'm going to hand it off to the site manager.
Right on. Thank you, Dustin. Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey Martorano, and we are officially into Chapter 2. Like Dustin said, I am the site VDC and FTG manager. I've worn quite a few hats throughout my time out on the Mesa Data Center. And really, my main goal right now is to make sure that we take all this information that we're coordinating, capturing, all that stuff, and we can get that engagement with the rest of our team. Like he said, at the peak of our project, we had probably 155 admin staff on our site, so it was really important to make sure that all this data is not going to waste. I also had the pleasure of coordinating 400 acres of civil underground utilities, which we'll look at a little bit later, but we'll get right into it. So, the folks you see here on the stage, this is the current team that's still on site. You know enough about me by now, so we've got Jeff, he's our survey lead. You're going to hear all about how we've implemented survey and control on this project. Anthony's helping him right alongside of him. He's a union carpenter that we actually converted into a survey assistant. And then we've got Nick. Nick is our resident drone expert, setting all kinds of records within DPR that you're going to hear all about. And then Eder. Eder's been leading all of our site utility laser scan capture. We scan every single utility that we put in the ground. There's a couple of reasons why we do that we'll talk about, but Eder spends a lot of days in the dirt in 115 degrees. And then we have Hemang. Hemang is running all of the interior scanning and helping out with a lot of the as-builting process. We have a pretty strict as-built requirement, and he's been doing a really good job with that. So you're going to hear all about all this exciting stuff as we go. But that's not to say that's the entire team, right? So a project of this scale, we need pretty much an army. It's been a monumental effort to get to where we are today. And the people you see on the screen today, these are people who have helped out at some way, shape, or form throughout the progress of the project. We've got hybrid PEs. We've got different kinds of SPW, VDC folks. And then in the middle, we have our vConstruct team. So DPR is a family of companies. We have a sister company by the name of vConstruct out of Pune, India. And really, vConstruct helps us with a lot of the things that take a lot of our time in our day. But it also helps keep DPR working 24 hours a day. So while we're sleeping, they're working, and while they're sleeping, we're working. And they have some really talented individuals on their team that can help us do a lot of really complex things. And we'll look at a little bit more of those here in a little bit, but we would not be where we are without VConstruct's help. All right, so a really unique opportunity that we had on this project that's never happened in a DPR project to my knowledge is that we had the opportunity to have our own fully dedicated trailer. Typically we kind of get the back room of something. This one, they gave us a blank slate, and in true VDC fashion, we took it over the top and modeled it in Revit, space planned the whole thing, figured out where we were going to put our hard hats, our survey equipment, even where we were going to put the barbecue outside and the cornhole boards. So we took it over the top. We did have the support from our GC Craft to help us actually build that trailer out. It looks a little plain and sterile at this photo right here, but once you really get into it and you get the folks in there that are actually doing the work, it comes to life. So we had sometimes too many people in a trailer at once, but it was all for good reasons. We had a lot of good collaboration and solving complex problems. We got trade partners in there, superintendents, you name it. And then, like I said, we had to make sure we had a place for our barbecue. So we started doing this thing that we called Bring Your Own Meat Friday. We would try and figure out a different recipe or thing to cook, and really get to know each other on a more personal level and have that kind of enjoyment side of the DPR side.
And there's me taking dorky photos again of myself. I have a habit of taking a lot of selfies everywhere I go, but in the role that I have, I work different hours and show up different times and do different things. And I might find myself at the job site at a later time, particularly on this day is because I live almost 2 hours away from this project site. So I was waiting for traffic to die down, but I wanted to go in and just see what was going on. It was neat to just see that, there's dirt and, stuff on the tables and vests, and some of the computers were on, some weren't. It was neat to see, and I was really proud of what this team is doing. It was just good to get in there and just take it all in. But during these times, sometimes my only friends is Mr. Dummy over here. That's not a real person, but we have used that dummy for demolition and safety testing on the job site.
Yeah. Lieutenant Dan here has been hit with an excavator a couple times. All right, so what is the Mesa Data Center? Kind of give you guys a little bit of context what we're talking about here. It is a 400-acre site. It is the former home of the GM Proving Grounds. GM packed up and moved to a different facility at some point in their time. And this land has kind of sat vacant for a while and now is slowly, over the last 10 years, starting to get built out. A lot of it, as you can see, is neighborhoods and a couple data centers now. So it was a phased delivery approach. We initially started with phase 1, which is what you see on the right-hand side of the screen there. And to go with that, we needed to have all of our temporary infrastructure as well. So everything you see that just popped up, that is only for us while we're in construction. That'll all eventually go away and be turned back into, an empty site. But we needed site logistics for craft parking, lay down, you name it. We at the peak of this project had probably over 2,000 craft on site. So making sure we had space for them was definitely an important factor. And then in the times of 2021, when we broke ground in August of 2021, we realized that having skilled labor on site was a challenge. There was a lot of projects in Arizona. It's a booming market. And DPR and our client made a tough decision that we were going to go full send and do the whole thing all at once. So typically this is not how we do it. But we added 3 more data halls and 2 more admin buildings onto that. And we're going to still do it in the same amount of time. So here we are today, chipping away at it. So to give you a little bit more context, for those of you guys going to the happy hour tonight, you can fit approximately 252 of Boise State's Smurf turf football field into our site, plus or minus a field or 2. It's massive. There's Josh there for a little scale. When you guys are out there, look around and kind of take that all in. It's a lot, and
something to point out here too, Corey.
Yeah,
it's basically like 2 of these neighborhoods right here, and job sites like this is basically like a little city, and you really have to think about behaviors a little differently on site.
Yeah,
it's not the same as a normal project site. You got to really think of it like as a small city and start city planning how you're going to operate this job site.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have temporary roads that we had to pave for construction that have been torn out. So yeah, when you're there tonight, take a look around, think about that for context, and put yourself in our shoes. So we mentioned VConstruct earlier. Wanted to talk a little bit about how VConstruct helped us on this project. So like I said, they have a very large team of very skilled individuals, and a lot of the stuff they help us with is scope cap modeling. On a project of this size, we have a lot of trades that don't really have the capacity or the skill sets to model certain things, but they're all just as important as your telecom and medium voltage. VConstruct can step in and help us with that. So A big thing that they helped us with on this one was the site fencing. Being that this is a very secure site, they have very secure fencing, as you would imagine. They're storing confidential data. And we had multiple different types of fencing and fence depths for footings, you name it. And vConstruct was able to help us model all of that and coordinate it so that we weren't hitting our utilities. Without them, it would have been very, very difficult to get that fence installed. And
I think important note there, Corey, is that when you're doing projects of this size or in construction in general, you really want to start thinking about who's your on-site, off-site team. Having an auxiliary team to work with you is really key to being nimble and being flexible and being able to do more things. And that has really been a really great relationship. So thinking about who that auxiliary team is important for any builder.
Yeah. So this is what it kind of looks like in a snapshot, right? We have all of our data halls and all of our underground utilities. As you can see, it's a bit of a rat's nest. I will say it's a very coordinated rat's nest since I spent so much time on it. But we have every kind of utility you can imagine. We've got water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, medium voltage, telecom. All of those have very specific requirements that we have to follow. And then, telecom, it is a data center. Kind of the most important one. They have very strict requirements on things that they can and cannot have in that system. So sloping requirements, depth requirements, proximity to other utilities. And we do all this, and we spend all this time coordinating it, but we need to make sure that it doesn't stop there and that it can then go back out to the field and get used throughout the life of construction. So when you look at a section cut kind of what we're working with here, I kind of like to call it an upside down hospital, where like everything you would have above ceiling in a hospital is underground. And the scale of this, for example, a lot of those conduits that you're looking at right there, those are 4-inch diameter conduits, sometimes stacked 8 high. So the trenching and all the excavation that we have is a super important aspect of it. But what's more important is when we get all of this stuff installed and we start backfilling all that information, we're scanning it before we do that, so that then we can make sure that when we're doing excavations in the future, we're, number one, not creating a safety risk and having people excavate near live utilities. And we're also not creating rework. When we have a project of this size, we don't have the time to go back and do it twice or 3 times. We barely have enough time to do it once. So with that, our team kind of put together a little bit of a dig permit process, right? We have all this data. We know where it's all at. We just need to figure out how to communicate that with the team. So we take that information, we overlay our scans with our models. They're all tied to control so that everything kind of drops right into place. And we set up meetings with our trade partners and our superintendents. We go through where they have excavations planned, where they need some information on the utilities in the area, and then we give them northings and eastings and say, hey, if you pothole right here, you're going to find live power that you need to go around. And it's been a huge effort to do all that, but it's been proven to be pretty successful, and it developed even more from there.
Yeah, so avoiding utility strikes is a big deal to DPR, and we're getting pretty serious about requiring our trade partners and our teams to model the site utilities and coordinate those. And what you're seeing here, you're probably seeing on LinkedIn a lot of information and presentations coming out on digital dig boards by Stuart Drahota and Nick Freshour. And this is really just the next evolution on how we're using drone deploy and site utilities in the model to bring it in this common environment so we can empower our field teams to know what's happening on the site in real time. So what this might look like a year from now or 2 years from now, it could easily change to something else. I'm hoping better and more improved, but it's really just about continuous improvement.
Yep, that's DPR's ever forward mentality. We always want to make sure we're getting better. All right, so this is where the presentation gets real fun because now my part's almost over. So to give you guys a little bit more context, right? So we broke ground in August of 2021. We topped out our first building a little over a year later in November of 22. Once we hit that first milestone, we took off and we went through all 8 buildings in 17 months. So the team got rolling. We really picked up the pace. And alongside that, all that underground utility work, that's all completed. And we've had over 900 dig permits submitted, approved, and reviewed without hitting a utility sense. So it's a huge effort to get there, but it all makes it worth it when you get to see those stats like that. And the reason why we're doing it, right? So we have 10 different design teams that we're working with. We have 3 different architects for different buildings. It kind of makes things a little bit more difficult, but it's for good reason. We've got over 5,000 RFIs. It's pretty insane when you look at the numbers. Through our coordination process, once we take all those design models and run through that coordination, we solved almost 28,000 issues that could have gotten taken out into the field and would have taken more time and effort to solve. And we did that in under 600 days. Not something we normally do. And then, like Dustin said, we get the capture side of it. So we have over 100,000 construction site photos and counting. That number's still going up. And what's great to see that is that there's 71,000 views. So it's getting used. The data's getting implemented. I actually had people email me yesterday saying, why don't we have a new photo from Monday? Because we're here. So, and then the biggest thing that you guys are going to hear about next is our scanning. So we have almost 2,500 scans that we've done with our Leica RTC 360 and our Navis. And all that data is what we use in those dig permits. All right, and then I am a numbers guy, so we're gonna go one more number here. For those of you who know who Joey Chestnut is, he is the all-time hot dog eating champion. And I did a little math. So we have roughly 1.75 million lineal feet of conduit underground. If you convert that to hot dogs, it's like 3.5 million hot dogs. Joey here can average about 7.5 dogs a minute. So it would take him 324 days of straight eating to get through our entire site of hot dogs. So just a little food for thought, no pun intended. And last but not least, if you guys have seen The Hangover, we like to joke around with each other and make I like to make Photoshops of people. But this is from The Hangover, and I think really what this picture shows is like, these are the managers in the Arizona business unit for VDC and FTG. And we've definitely gotten beat up and bruised along the way. We've had our rough mornings and rough evenings, but I think in the end, we've all kind of we've just sufficed and been successful. And then, of course, Ted always just likes to hang around and be a part of it and not really do anything. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to hand it on to Chapter 3.
All right.
Name's Geoffrey Revling. I am the full-time surveyor on this project. Part of the wheel that turns with all of these guys up here. My responsibilities were mainly to establish control network throughout the site, as built, any installed work, random layout as needed, and help support some of the laser scanning and using the traditional scanner along with the mobile scanner, the VLX2. I recently received my Part 107 UAV pilot's license. Just another tool to add to the toolbox.
All right, so thanks for that introduction, Jeff. So you all heard that we're self-performing field technology now. We've always done field technology, but we're self-performing it now to run it as a business, just like any of our other scopes that we do self-perform in. And so the question to you, Jeff, is why would we want to self-perform survey at DPR?
Well, and this quote you're looking at here is, surveyors are retiring at a faster rate than those entering the profession. I saw a statistic out there that states for every surveyor that retires, 0.15 enters the field. I don't know about you guys, but that math doesn't really add up. It's kind of alarming, but it's another reason why we wanted to bring full-time survey to this project.
Yeah, I mean, we can see the writing on the wall, so we're investing in people like Jeff to join our team so that we have better control of our daily activities on site needed for survey and building control. But it's also because of this. We use reality capture field technology for everything on all of our projects. If it's existing conditions, we're capturing it. If we're going to build something, we're using virtual tools to build it virtually. And when we go to install the work, we're using our field technology tools to lay it out. And we're also using those same tools from a quality control standpoint and an as-building standpoint. But the reason survey and building control play an important role is that it ties all that together as a single source of truth. So we really need to have control and command of that. So Jeff, why though, so now we know why we're self-performing survey. Why would we want to have a full-time surveyor on a job site like Mesa Data Center?
One of the reasons, like they stated before, full campus release, 400 acres. You got utilities coming in from all different directions on the site. All of the underground that was being performed at the same time. We were going to need someone there constantly. Availability. With that other slide that you saw, with the lack of surveyors out there, we didn't know if we were going to be able to rely on the third parties to come in on a daily basis whenever we needed something done. That ties into maintaining our schedule. The client's like a significant other, right? Happy wife, happy life. So along with that is consistency more than anything. We have a full-time surveyor on site. That's the sole truth, right? We did something on this site where we set up a base station and everyone tied into that same base station so we could hold on to that level of consistency. We wouldn't have different elevation bus or location bus. We wanted that solid consistency.
Awesome. So I think those are all real great reasons, Jeff, and I think there's more to it beyond that, right?
Right. I mean, you're looking at my 3-year-old would be proud of this this splatter painting here, but this is really just a compilation of all the control that was added to this site over the past 3 years.
I think you called it Survey Picasso, is what you said.
You did? Yep.
So there's a lot going on there, Jeff. Maybe help us walk through the layers of what all this is.
Right now, what you're looking at is one of the practices we like to do here at DPR. The third party came in, they set up the primary control around the site. We wanted to run a traverse through that, and it was somewhere between 1.5 miles and 2 miles long in distance. And if there's any surveyors out there that want to take a guess on what we closed this out on, it was just under a 1/4 of an inch, which over that distance is exceptional. It really helped us to keep our control network tight throughout the job.
And we will bring third party on site to do anything that needs to be licensed. But the key with having someone like Jeff on site is that we're checking it, we're double checking things, we're triple checking things, and that really enables us to have extra security in what's happening.
Right here, you're looking at the different control networks that were the primary and the blue there up in the top right. We built these nice, extravagant concrete monuments that we put the back sights on. We were able to set up on those back sight, shoot into the other ones. We were able to resection off those. Anytime we were set up on control, we could always check back into those. We then ran from that into the secondary control. You'll see a picture on the bottom right there. Again, we went with 6 by 6 foot by 3 feet deep monuments with brass caps installed in them, because we knew there was going to be heavy machinery, all kinds of cranes driving by, and we wanted to make sure that control wasn't compromised, because again, a surveyor, we're trying to get everything as perfect as we can.
So did you have any issues with survey on site being ripped out or anything like that?
That's a touchy subject.
Yeah. In fact, that's the excavator, the picture, right?
That is.
Yeah.
That is. Yep. When the superintendents let us know that, hey, we got to rip these out, there was the kind of the pushback with. We coordinated this from the beginning of the project, thinking we were going to be able to keep these, but one thing leads to another, and they had to come out. So we then added that third level of control on the vaults you see in the yellow up there. And that was a way for us to bring that control back to the gen yards and anywhere that we really needed to.
So I also like to joke like Corey with pictures, and I added, if anyone knows Blippi and has kids, I added the excavator song to this situation, but Geoffrey definitely was not appreciative of that. So probably won't do that again. All right, so what's going on here?
So all of the, Corey stated earlier, we had over 2,000 data sets of underground utility scanning. This is a compilation of that. For every one of those data sets, we would put nail 2 or 3 nails or 3 or 4 nails into the ground and then capture those so we could tie everything to control.
All right.
And this is, you can kind of tell it's a footprint of what the buildings look like. This is a compilation of all the control that we set up throughout the entire building. We got first level there, second level. We do have some as-built of gen yards, anchor bolts, benchmarks.
Okay.
So what we like to do is we like to put together some visual aids for anyone that needs to reference those control points. We threw together a PDF. We showed where the location of those control points were. Sometimes they landed on the same column faces between the first level and second level. So we layered those on the left there and made it so they could turn those on and off and make it real easy to go and find and reference whenever they needed to go out into the field.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jeff. So that we just went through those layers. So coming back to this is basically a compilation of all of that put in one. You're looking at over 13,000 points. So you can imagine you've seen a guy running around with an adjustable rod with a pointy thing at the end and a tablet and a little funny looking thing on top. That was us. So this, I think you would agree, this really validates why we need someone like Jeff on site full time, is that we need to have the nimbleness to react to all this in real time, down to the minute, the hour, day. Really helps us be nimble and not affect our schedule. So that's a lot of information, a lot of things to get set up. Jeff, how do we get started just having this conversation about control on the job site and carry it through to the end?
Well, at the beginning of the jobs, we put together a plan. We decide where we're going to put those monuments. We construct those monuments, set those monuments up. Throughout that process, when we're collecting those, we're obviously putting together CSV files and text files, throwing them into a cloud server, all in one folder. So it's your one source of truth. We put together an exhibit on our trailer with a QR code that anyone could come and scan and then have access to those files. I mean, aside from the day-to-day conversations, emails, text threads and whatnot, that was really the easiest way to get that out.
Cool. So the darker gray on the left is really kind of some initial steps on site. There's a lot of other things going on, but those are some initial key steps. The blue column of boxes is ongoing. And at the bottom, you talk about weekly meetings. So what do weekly meetings look like with you in the trades?
Well, usually they're early mornings, of course. Here, we usually meet at one of the buildings, discuss any issues that anyone's having. Hopefully not, but there is. It's a construction site. We'd go over what areas are being released, where we're going to add control, anything that we've had to take away and remove. Just keep people constantly updated.
So communication is key.
Yes, 100%.
So in a way, having Jeff on site is great because he's kind of like a deal breaker between all the trade partners, mediator, judge, jury, and executioner, if you will. But, he's kind of like a trusted source that everyone can rally around. So the goal is to have everyone working off the same control, and those weekly meetings are key. So why don't you tell us about a use case on the project?
Here, you're looking at some of the vaults. We had a couple different versions of vaults between the medium voltage and the telecom. There were different details to those vaults. One of them gave us the elevation to the top of the concrete, while the other gave us the elevation to the top of the rim. And there was a little confusion when some of those got set. So after the grading got finished and we went and noticed that they weren't per plan, we busted out the builder's level, referenced the benchmark, shot those, came to the conclusion that we could either add or remove one of those rings to get them back to the correct elevation.
So it's for us, I think it's having you on site. It's not only about having a single source of truth, but it's also to address quality issues in real time. And it's been very helpful, Jeff. So what does a day in the life of Jeff look like?
Any normal day where you get to the site, you set up the GPS, turn it on, you check into a couple things. Whenever we get into the buildings, as you're looking at us running around like a chicken with his head cut off, we're setting up our total station here. We're resectioning into some of the secondary control and then transferring it over to the columns. Also, we did the same thing. Basically, we took the secondary control, ran it up to the rooftop, resectioned in, tightened it up, and passed it along to the trades. Here you're looking at setting up a backsite, again, resectioning into our tertiary control that we added to the vaults for some scanning control in areas that we couldn't use the GPS because once you get close to the buildings, it's an issue. We also were able to use it for as-builting some site lighting. 2 birds with 1 stone that time.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. So I think hopefully it's self-evident going through all that. The scale of what you just saw is why we need somebody like Jeff on site full time. And it is one of the best decisions we ever made. And this will continue to happen on the rest of our projects. So you're probably wondering, did we make Jeff do this all by himself? The answer is no. He had help. If anyone's familiar with this image, you might be dating yourself, but this is based off a movie about a creature that lands on Earth and gets lost, but then soon finds a home and new friends and learns about new culture and way of doing things, and then goes back off into a different universe. In some ways, this is kind of the next story that's going to be told.
Hello, everyone. I am that creature. My name is Anthony Valenzuela. I'm an assistant survey and field technician at the Mesa Data Center. I use the total station to support benchmarks, the builder's level to document elevation, and I also support scanning with the Navis VLX2 and sometimes RTC 360. So I started off as a GC laborer on Mesa Data Center. Some of the responsibilities that I had to do on site was check porta ponds, 150 porta johns twice a day, once before lunch and once after lunch, just to make sure there was no vandalism or anything. I also had to monitor cooling stations and build site signage because, as they mentioned earlier, it's a 400-acre site, a little town, and to help people get around the town, there had to be signage and wayfinding. Build some muster points to help people get to safe areas if need be for anything. Building protection was a big thing. Pedestrian crosswalks and stop signs were things I had to install because we had a lot of traffic all day. I went from doing all that to capturing as-built, supporting reality capture, and cleaning up scans in recap. So miscellaneous site carpentry on the site included building temporary stairs to reach certain access points, anchor bolt covers, because there's heavy machinery moving around site all day and we didn't want any of those anchor bolts to get damaged. Site fencing needed to get moved weekly, if not daily, along with the wattles. Cameras, porta-johns, and site lighting was a big thing on site for all our craft workers to get around. Barricade placement was a big thing. Water barricades and metal barricades to help guide the roads and for safety concerns as well. Street sweeping and dust control was a big thing there. Another thing was water intrusion cleanup. During monsoon season, it can get pretty crazy out there, and we'll get massive amounts of rainfall in a little amount of time, and we had to clean up the buildings. So I went from doing all that to applying control with the total station, learning how to resection, staking out points, transferring and establishing control, creating offsets on the buildings, and anything else. So my time at DPR has actually been incredible. I've learned how I became a certified forklift operator, boom lift operator, scissor lift operator. I started with hands-on skills and power tools, but I went from doing all that to developing technical skills with reality capture tools. So yeah, once again, going from GC to FTG, I had a lot of support from one of my leaders, Logan Hull. He's been an amazing person to help me out on my journey. Also, continuous support from Dave Elrod. He's a big deal. He's a business unit leader, but to me, he was just another guy on site helping me out and guiding me, which is amazing. March of 2023 is when I first joined the FTG team as a survey assistant to Jeff. Our focus at the time was Tiny Control in Building 3, and this was the first time I heard of what a total station was or what control is and why we even use control. But now I know everything that I know about surveying because of Jeff, so thank you once again. But moving forward, I'm super excited to continue to build great relationships and to also build great things here at DPR.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. So Anthony just described perfectly what we really, really want to get good at, which is integrating craft into building additional skill sets into different flows of work so that their career journey can take different roads if they want to. And so what you heard was Anthony coming from crafts, joining the field tech team. And he brought with him some self-performed knowledge in different scopes of work, which is beneficial. And then the next speaker you'll hear from has also came from crafts, joined our field tech team, and quickly developed some hybrid skill sets on the project using field tech and VDC, and now has transitioned fully into VDC as a senior VDC engineer. And we have another individual, journeyman, Angel, who came from crafts, carpentry, and joined our self-performed VDC team doing metal, wood, framing, modeling, and detailing. And now he's moving on to PE work. And those GC labor resources we were talking about earlier, who were auxiliary to our field tech team doing construction site photo documentation, are also, it's not the most glamorous work, I know, but they're also learning additional skill sets, how to take photos and why we do progress documentation, but they're also learning soft skills too. And then we rotate in new craft. And so that's something we really take seriously at DPR and want to get better at, is how we support the crafts so that we can encourage more people to join the labor force so that they can see there are other alternatives to career growth in the construction industry. And to take this a little further, this is still evolving, but we're trying to articulate what skill set expectations are, starting with someone such as Anthony. He talked about site, survey, and layout. These were some important things for him to learn and understand. And as he goes farther down a timeline, there's some additional skill sets that we want Anthony to start learning, which is laser scanning. He talked about that, and he's starting to learn how to process laser scans and why we use that technology and what use cases. He's bringing along the concrete and scope of work of knowledge. And what you'll notice is as we keep going to the right, these start getting strengthened in terms of knowledge of survey and UAV systems and laser scanning, and business acumen starts getting put into here, all the way to management. You can see that business management becomes a real thing. And so we have to be able to provide that development for these individuals who have a particular interest in that. It's not for everybody, but we at least have articulated a path that could be taken and what the expectations are from apprentice to field tech role to manager role to a leader role. We have a lot more detail that goes with this, but at least we're trying to, in our own way, articulate what growth looks like. That being said, we're going to kick it off to Nicholas.
All right, thank you, Dustin. As you guys kind of just heard, I started my journey about 6 years ago as a laborer while I was in college, and then once I graduated, transitioned to kind of a field engineer role, learning more about kind of reality capture at that level. And then I didn't really fully get into it until I joined DPR as the full-time drone pilot. While doing drone pilot stuff, though, I've also helped out a lot with the laser scan and all of the QA/QC that goes along with it, as well as all the video and media editing that usually comes along with being a drone pilot, as well as helping out with surveying support, as well as helping the VDC team where needed. So kind of just go through the different equipment we're using out there. We are using all the DJI platform for our drones. Starting with the big one here, this is Marvin, our M300. We use this one mostly because, as you've heard, we're out in Arizona, we're on a huge site, but more importantly, it gets about 100 degrees by 9 a.m. and we needed a robust platform that was able to handle these extreme temperatures and be reliable on a day-to-day basis, since we've been flying almost daily for the last 3 years. And then more of our Swiss Army knife, we have our Mavic 3. This handles all of the photos, the panos, the videos, all that good marketing material. This is our quick capture. The team needs something, we can go out. We can throw the drone up faster than someone can get across site. So this is our Swiss Army knife. And then new opportunity we have, get into the FPV space. We got a DJI Avata. If anyone's tried to fly an FPV, they know that the learning curve is much steeper than a regular drone. So we've been practicing and getting good with that, and going to get better at that so we can do more interior close-up flights and a lot cooler videos.
And I think one thing I want to point out there is in the beginning of this presentation, we talked about researching innovation opportunities. This is one of them where the project lends itself to try to take certain things a step further. So we acquired this drone because we have the team, the resources, and that's an innovation opportunity. We want to understand how we can use this on our projects, whether it's for marketing or some other form of doing logistics.
So one of the first big challenges that we had to overcome while coming to the site with, as far as drones are related, we are about 2 miles from an airport, but more importantly, we're catty corner to a hospital with a helipad. And they like to get about just high enough to clear the cranes, and they're ripping. So we have to be head on a swivel all the time. So it was important for us to get our certificate of authorization in and get all our necessary prep work done before we were even out on site, so that we could hit the ground running and know that we were good to fly and knew that we could provide this service throughout the project lifetime. So once we had all of that, we knew that other trades and other people would be wanting to fly on site. So we have all the same requirements as the FAA, your license, having your proper paperwork, your COAs, stuff like that. But we also take it a step further. We like to have any pilot that's flying on a job site to have a minimum of 25 hours logged with another pilot that has at least 100 hours. That way we know that the people coming out on site and flying are doing it with intention. They know what they're doing, and we can avoid any kind of things happening, since we don't want our waiver to be taken away. Since we fly every day, we need to be kind of the air traffic control of the site, as well as communicating with the air traffic control tower at the airport near us.
So again, with the Photoshop, you'll probably see this picture of Nick a couple more times, I think.
Yeah.
But he's not actually sitting in front of the air traffic controller tower. I Photoshopped that in there. But I want to point out that we actually built that air traffic controller tower in Mesa, Arizona, and that is an actual drone we were flying at that job site because we had a good relationship with the air traffic controller tower manager. However, I think this story goes a little deeper with that one.
Yeah, this is actually the air traffic controller tower that I call on a daily basis, so I'm sure that helped out with us getting our certificate authorization. They've been really helpful. So what are the different things we're doing out there? We're kind of doing anything and everything we can with the drone. We're trying to use it to replace any kind of workflow we can. Kind of starting at the top left, you have your basic photo, video, progress capture stuff. This is actually from one of our topping out ceremonies where we had a really cool celebration, bringing out smoke grenades, planes, all kinds of cool stuff. And we were able to capture all that with the drone and kind of memorialize it so that people could share that with their families and such. Another thing we're doing is we're utilizing drone deploy for all the site mapping and stuff like that to convey to the larger team. But sometimes we need to get more on a micro level. We need to kind of overlay some of these things. We need to do some further investigation, and DJI Terra has been helpful with that, doing some 3D flights, allowing us to get some point clouds and models out of that. And we're even taking that a step further past the pre-programmed route, and we're doing timed manual flights over small utilities real low to the ground so that we could fly a section of sewer within 5 minutes and have that modeled in Terra within an hour and put into a model before the team even has a chance to backfill it, so that we can verify before they cover it up if it's good to go, to prevent any rework. And then also we have your topographical, making sure that we have good drainage and that we have curbs where they need to be, and so that we can make sure that we keep all of the drainage and SWIP stuff where it needs to be. So how much are we capturing out there? Like I said, we've been flying pretty much daily out there. Over that time, we've flown about over 300 maps and counting, over 6,000 pano photos, and that's translated to about 560 hours of maps, a little over 200 hours of panos. And those distance equals out to over 10,000 miles mapping miles and a little under 1,000 panoramic miles flown for the panoramas.
I'm pretty sure Drone Deploy was convinced we were trying to break their software.
I think we got close a few times. That all, just to put that into further context, that is the distance between Phoenix and Madagascar. And since we'll be out on this project for a little while longer, we're kind of hoping that we can continue that and just wrap all the way around the world and get miles Phoenix to Phoenix. But we don't just fly just for our own enjoyment. We do like flying. It is fun. But we also have a huge project team that's clamoring for it. A lot of the project team, they aren't on site every day. As he mentioned, V-Construct works in India. We have other project teams around the world working on this project, and they've never even had the opportunity to see it. So Drone Deploy helps us out in visualizing that for those people. So we have over 1,000 users active just in our project. And they're not just being invited to the project, they're using it. That's translated to over about 270,000 views. And they're not just going in there and looking at it and saying that's pretty. They're actually using the tools available to them to take measurements, take volumes, and utilizing that to the best of their capabilities. And you're about to hear about one of our superintendents that's doing that at a really high level.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. So those are a group of superintendents in the photo, and it's very validating for us to see them using the technology. One that we wanted to highlight was Keela. She's a superintendent in Arizona on this Mesa Data Center project, and I was kind of shocked to see her utilization is just through the roof. She quite literally is the second top viewer in DPR in terms of using Drone Deploy. And how Keela is using this is for her day-to-day logistics and planning and communication with the trade partners and understanding of the changing job site conditions. And when I took a step further, I just really wanted to see, okay, how does she stack just overall company Drone Deploy users? And you could see like where that arrow is way up there. And so we really want to understand what Keela was doing in more detail. So we went and talked to her and got these images and what she's doing. And just a really great example of a superintendent on a job site using Drone Deploy and the technology as a digital builder or virtual builder, whatever you want to call it. Really, really great example that she's setting. And this is another example on how she's pulling information off of Drone Deploy. So she's in there constantly. It's integrated to her role, which is really incredible. And we just love to see more individuals like Keela in construction, and we need more individuals like her doing this kind of awesome work. She actually is going to be, we got her to go to Horizons in a couple weeks, so she's going to be there if you want to meet her and learn more about what she's doing from a day-to-day standpoint. But a really cool story about superintendents using Drone Deploy.
So as you heard Corey mention earlier, between topping out our first building and our 7th building, there was about a 17-month span. And that's kind of hard to visualize until you kind of put it on a time lapse like this, where you see steel crews going year round. I know that these guys aren't used to being on projects more than a few months at a time. And we've had some particular weather challenges. Even the last year was probably the hottest summer in Arizona history, with over 30 days of 110 degrees plus. So it's pretty incredible to see just how much the team has been able to power through that and kind of stick to schedule, and some parts even be ahead of schedule, just really pushing on through and helping the team out. Another little side note here, when you're setting up your certificate of authorization, you might want to talk to your project team, figure out how tall their crane's going to be. We got original authorization at about 350 feet, and then several months down the line, we were pretty surprised when a 375-foot crane showed up on site for a 2-story building. So we were kind of scrambling to get a quick turnaround update to our authorization with the SAA. Luckily, they were able to give that to us within a day. So they were helpful with that.
Awesome. So on the note of time lapse, Drone Deploy helped us put this together. And we used it for a different reason on the job site, but something that struck me with this is just seeing all the building movement, the dirt movement, the road work movement, the traffic movement. Drone Deploy has come out with some new technology that's available in terms of using AI for safety. What goes to my mind, and this is just kind of a thought, is how can we use these time lapse in this data to analyze different movement road conditions and different movement of things happening over time and how weather impacts that. I'm really interested and excited to see how AI can leverage information like this in the future to give us insights on how to optimize the way we do logistics and construction on the next project. So that was more of just food for thought.
Yep, we got terabytes of data that we would love to feed it. So I kind of touched on this earlier. DJI Terra has been a helpful platform for us for those quicker, dirtier, your micro level stuff, not your full site stuff, we can quickly capture an entire area and have it locally processed. That's kind of the biggest factor for us on DJI Terra, is that it is a local program that allows us to do stuff very quickly with a quick turnaround process, and then also able to get all of those usual file formats that work well with all of our other software platforms, so that we're not trying to bounce around between too many softwares for different point cloud uses. So one of the things about our group is that we're capturing constantly, kind of being proactive rather than being reactive. And one of those times where it came to help us out and figuring it out what was happening, we had the project team come to us after they had poured some pads and placed some equipment on them, and they were sinking, and they wanted to know why that was happening and what we could do to help them fix it. So we kind of did an investigation. We went back and we noticed through some drone deploy panoramic photos, we noticed that after a particularly heavy rain, we had some pooling of water up close to the building, and it was in a particularly not so sunny area of the site, so it kind of just sat there. And then a few days after that rain came, the crew came back and they kind of buried on top of it. They backfilled, and they didn't quite do that process correctly. They didn't make sure that the ground was dry enough yet. And then to compound that, a week later, they poured concrete pads on top of it, and it was kind of a ticking time bomb at that point.
And you can see a picture of pooling water here, but Arizona is a little crazy. Sometimes we can get a whole year's worth of rain in just an hour. So dealing with that in site conditions can be unexpected sometimes.
Yeah, we're so used to having clear skies and clean weather that we can kind of just plow through anything as long as the people can do it. So as you can see, those pads were significantly sinking. It was pretty visual to the eye. So because we were being proactive in scanning everything as it was installed, we captured those pads after they were poured and had good elevation data for each corner of them. So we were able then to go back, rescan those pads, and see exactly how far they had sank over the amount of time. And from there, the project team was able to take that information, and they were coming up with a plan. And the plan they came up with was to ramjack each corner. But that presented another challenge. Beneath those pads, we have all kinds of utilities, medium voltage, telecom, sewer, storm. So we had to make sure to dodge all of that. But because we scanned everything, we could throw everything into Navis and overlay where we wanted to place those ramjacks and thread the needle and miss all of those. So we put 4 ramjacks on each pad, kind of a small, tight area, and we were able to miss all utilities, which was a huge win for us.
This is really why we use reality capture or field tech on projects, is for this very reason right here. There's many other reasons, but this is a really good reason.
Yeah. It would have been a nightmare because these ramjacks need to go down 30 feet, and all those utilities live about 6-7 feet underground, so they really need to dig down deep. So the project team like to come to us with all kinds of crazy requests, but it's because we like to go with them. We like to show off a little bit. We have some cool toys we like to play with. One of the things that they came to us was they wanted us to create a cool kind of breast cancer awareness signage in our all hands area. And instead of going the old-fashioned route, going out there and just measuring it out, we decided to use every tool we have, basically, and we took a drone flight, we put it into Civil 3D, we drew out exactly what logos we wanted, we took those points, put them into the GPS. You see, we laid those out, and then we kind of had a fun day with the whole VDC team in Arizona. They came out to the project, and we had a good time painting this all up. And we painted this a little over 2 years ago, and it has no sign of fading or going away anytime soon.
And something to note, that was a 24-hour turnaround, and from the moment we got asked to getting out there, painting, and getting it done.
Yes, like most construction sites.
Okay, so great stuff, Nick. So we have right now 627 projects in drone deploy, and I wanted to highlight Nick a little bit because he's very humble about himself. And really what I wanted to point out is Nick is literally our top capturer at DPR Construction. So he's flying a lot, and sorry, Tim Conroy. Yeah, obviously the project lends itself to use the technology for these things. The use cases drive it, so we're obviously aware of that. And the project itself has a really high capture on that project in relation to other projects we have. So really incredible numbers for us to see. And when we look at Nick as a capture in comparison to all the additional pilots in our company, is just off the scale. So that number you see, that line you see all the way to the right, is Nick. So he's got a lot of flight time and experience. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because he's our top gun. And he'll be available for autographs after the presentation if you want them. So we're very pleased with your work, Nick.
Thank you.
All right. Eder, you're up.
Thank you, Dustin. Hi, my name is Eder Estrada. I'm a field tech engineer here at DPR Construction. I'm the lead for site utility scanning using the RTC 360. I also support with the Navis VLX2, and I'm also in charge of as-building all the documents for site utilities. And I'm also one of the UAV pilots here on site.
So why do we laser scan full-time on site, Eder?
So we laser scan driven by the client's expectations through as-built documentations on specs. This is how we capture, this is why we're scanning daily here on site. So some of our site scanning scopes, so we love to capture all underground utilities, regardless of the size, for future excavations, as Corey mentioned, for dig permits and as-built documentations. We also love to capture all the underground electrics for one of the data halls for right locations to avoid any delays and any rework activities. And the most important, we love to problem solve. So as Nick mentioned earlier in the presentation, we had a PTX pad settlement going on, so we need to laser scan that real quick. So this helped us for accurate measurements needed for each corner to ramjack it up.
And on top of that, the why is that the client had some expectations on capturing the assets on the project site. But we do this also as a way of how we build at DPR. So from a quality standpoint, we wanted to take it a step further and scan everything. So it really married up where we had a client that saw value in this and wanted it. And it's also how we build. So bigger picture, that's the why on how we are doing this much work with this technology, because we have a client that has been very supportive and sees value in this.
So what kind of equipment are we using on site? So we're using a Leica RTC 360. So thank you to our partners, equipment partners, OES. They're able to supply us with all these equipment that we need. That's also for renting supplies and loaning them out to us. If we have any issues or we need one backup ASAP, we can out there laser scan.
And this is really just this continued journey, right, Eder, of operating our field technology group as a self-perform. We need to have a way to procure equipment, and these equipment partners are a way we can do that and run this like a business. So it's been very helpful to have that in-house.
So what kind of size, Corey mentioned earlier, we're scanning for all the electrical, the storm, sewer, and water, but also keep in mind, we have to make sure that we are following DPR safety procedures. So once I'm out there, I gotta, look out the area, look out for the trenches. I gotta put my pre-task plans. I gotta verify, if I don't need any equipment, don't need any harness. Some of these trenches, they get pretty deep down, so I have to make sure, I'm wearing proper equipment. And also in Arizona, it gets over 110 degrees on the summer, so DPR supplies us with camelbacks. That way we're out there fresh and hydrated out there. And this is some of the examples of what kind of things that we're scanning out there with the trench boxes, the storms, and some of the T-coms out there. They're pretty massive, so it takes a lot of setups out there. So another reason we're also laser scanning is for one of our so we like to make sure we capture all the stub ups before this concrete pour. So all of this data hall that you see on the picture, all this is covered in concrete, and before the stub ups are placed with concrete, we measure it and we create deviation reports. Once we create deviation reports, we capture, we do the during the spec, we see how tolerance, if they're all the tolerance, making sure they're within the window. And once we have this deviation report, we send them out to the trades, asking them to fix their issues, before this concrete pour, to complete, milestones and deadlines. And we're all doing this all with the GPS and control. So each of our data scan data set is tied to control for both accuracy and each overlay into our federal models. So as Jeff mentioned earlier, DPR is partnered with our civil and our grading contractor to work off one established base station on site. And just a quick workflow of how we're capturing this control. So first, I'll set the nail on the ground. I'll put either a ribbon or a whisker. I'll set the GPS on top of the nail, and then we capture it and name the point. And once we name the point, I then capture all the anything that's being scanned out in the field. So just put in perspective, we have a total about mostly 2,200 laser scans with using the RTC 360. It breaks it down to how many water scans we have, how many sewer scans we have, how many storm scans, finished floor flatness, and also any miscellaneous. And all this adds up to almost, for the last 3 years, adds up almost to 40,000 RTC 360 setups. So that's a pretty big amount. So that's also equal to 2.1 terabytes that we haven't stored. And you see on the picture on the right, this is just, sometimes, I have, scans, I have like 8 to 10 scans a day. I have a very, very good communication with our foremans. Sometimes they have their laser scans on the same day, so I have to coordinate them with them. I can get you at this time and this day. Once I laser scan, come back on site on my desk, I like to mark up and what areas that I scanned. That we also present this in the OEC meetings, having the client see how much reality capture we're capturing out in the field. And just to give brief how many months we've got with their scanning. So how do we keep this organized? So we first started off with Excel, but we found out it was, we weren't being too successful, so we transitioned over to Monday.com. So Monday.com has helped us visualize to day-to-day activities, it's helped us establish due dates, helped us team collaborate, making productivity, making files organized and sorted, and also analyze and produce statistics. So here, one of our dashboards, keeping score, Monday.com, it gives us, a lot of brief description, helps us analyze, it just also present these to the OEC meetings.
Yeah, so I think a little more explanation on this from my point of view is that Power BI dashboards, though they create great visuals, and it conveys the information that we need to the teams to hold accountability and give updates, as Eder is saying. It also takes a little bit of a unique skill set to curate that information in there and create these visuals. So what we found was Monday.com is a little bit easier to use in a broader sense, so that our whole team can manage that and bring the information in there and create these custom visuals to communicate to the team. So nothing wrong with Power BI dashboard, but we were trying to right fit the tool for the project that made sense for the team. And this is why we went down the Monday.com route. There's actually a lot more that we haven't shown here that is on Monday.com. But we got everything on there. It's actually pretty neat. I think we have it on our phone. We could show anyone in the audience later if you want to see what that looks like.
We even track activities with llamas. If you've never used Monday, you can use llamas as icons. It's
Llama Farm.
Yeah, it's called Llama Farm.
So during that Monday.com, we name our document. So we name our naming conventions. We like to set up our naming conventions. That way, it's easier to track down what scans that we need and what particular day. If a certain trade needs a certain scan, they can just filter it by doing the description of a sewer. Just filter it and then it gives you the exact date we scanned it. And then all this local storage. We have a bin box on site, which is a bin box tower. This shows all the graphics cards, the memory, the CPU, and one important fact that we have on site is that we have a NAS, so it's a local storage backup to our box.com. So we talked about that now, but how does the life look like at the field tech engineer at DPR? So this is where we capture, So we use a platform called Smartsheet. This is where the trades, they will plan the work. Once the work is installed, they will then need to put a laser scan request. I'll get these emails. We need a laser scan request, and then I'll physically go and laser scan the work. Once I laser scan the work, I set the points and align it to control. And once it's been registered and everything like that, we then load it to our latest coordination model. Once we load it to our coordination model, we then analyze the scans versus the models, with our specs tolerance. So we think to ourselves, once it's installed the work, if it's fall between the intended tolerance from the client specs. So the client is very defined how he wants his spec tolerance. So if it's a civil site work, it will need to be between 12 inches horizontally or 6 inch vertically. But if it's inside the building structure, it would need to be between 0 to 3 inches. So if it does fall between that tolerance, then yes, there's no further action needed. But if it does not fall between that tolerance, if it goes over 3 inches, then we would either create a BIM 360 issue, a field issue, or we'll create a BIM track issue. So a field issue, we'll create it for the trade partners to fix their issues on site in the field. But if it's a BIM track issue, you will create them for the trades to adjust all the adjuster models. So once we create it on BIM 360 field, this is where we hand it off to our KQC team. That's where they will take a look at the issues and then get with the foremans or the trade partners and close them out on their end. But when it comes to our BIM track issues, we would have to schedule weekly meetings with the trade partners to notify them any discrepancies. Once we have that, we set up the merge models with our as-built models from trade partners. Once we review the issue with the trade partners, we add comments, identify any committed dates and any further discussions that we have. Once they've seen that this is a BIM track issue, I would then, once they fix their issue, I would then go again and just verify it's been matched, it matches our laser scan. And once I see that's okay, it looks pretty well, then that's where we close the BIM track issue, and that's where the trades will need to make sure they are handling all their contract specs, and this repeats over and over for every BIM checks that we have.
So what Eder just describes is a process specific to DPR and something Eder does every day related to as-building and deviation reports. And there's other software out there that will say they do deviation reports and use AI, and those may work in certain applications, but we've came up with this workflow that we paired with our vConstruct partners because it's cost effective, where you can pair up with our auxiliary team and offsite. We come up with this workflow that works for us internally, and we can do it for a much lower cost to the project. So that's what Eder just walked you through, is all the steps that we do to achieve that internally.
So here's an example of what we have on one of our as-built scans versus our design model. So on the picture on the right, you see a laser scan that I did. So this would be a BIM track issue. So the trade partner will need to adjust their stub-ups to match the model. So this would be a BIM track right here, or a field issue, sorry. And this is also this is where we create a field issue right here. So we'll put them on a BIM 360. Make sure all the install work is up to date, for all the resolutions, and it's being installed correctly. But we talked about the exterior side of scanning, but let's go ahead and talk about the interior side of scanning.
And one note real quick before we flip over, I just want to say, because I know there's someone out there asking the questions, but we don't start new projects with BIM 360 field anymore. We use ACC. But this is an interesting thing that we have to deal with in our industry, is when we start a project and it's a long-term project, sometimes we got to stick with the software that we started with, and then we have to start managing legacy software with newer software, and they start overlapping, and that becomes a bit of a unique situation to manage, especially if we have a new hire that came on the job site and they're experiencing BIM 360 and PM management software for the first time, and they come off the job site and suddenly they're using ACC. We have to be very thoughtful on how we provide training to people, because it's very dynamic on how that happens on our sites that are short and long term.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, they say that the best things are kept for last, and I'm here to showcase the climax of this presentation. My name is Hemang Brahmbhatt. It's been more than 1 year working with DPR Construction as a field tech engineer, and I've been literally laser scanning every single day. Isn't that amazing, showing the scale of our project? So what does a customer expect when they go to buy a product? They expect perfection. And when it comes to construction, one of the perfection aspects is the verification of the design model with the as-built model. And I'm going to explain how DPR Construction is bridging this gap between design and reality with the help of laser scanning technology. And it's going to go fast. Make sure your eyes are glued on screen, otherwise you will miss the train. So currently we're using the Navis VLX2 for our interior scanning. And as Corey explained the site plan, we have 5 data hall buildings and 3 admin buildings. And each data hall building is divided into 5 areas: A, B, C, D, and E. And we scan level 1 of each area 4 times throughout the life cycle of the project, so that we can verify all these four phases and do the perfect as-builts for them. So first, we check the installation of structural steel. Second is in-wall construction scanning. Third is installation of overhead utilities. We scan the utilities. And the fourth is the final turnover scan. And apart from that, we also scan the exterior areas, which includes the genyard areas, landscape, lighting poles, and concrete curbs. Let me give you like an example of the area overview of how much we are going to scan. So area of one data hall is 64,000 square feet. As I explained that we scan level 1 4 times and level 2 1 time. So it comes to like 320,000 square feet just for data hall A of one building. So overall, just for one building, we are scanning around 8 million square feet of the data. And for the whole project, just the interior scanning for the as-builts, we are going to do like 44 million square feet, which is equivalent to almost scanning the Boise State football ground like 764 times. And talking about such humongous area like gives me chills every time. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking one day at a time. So let's go through how we scan. So first we name the project, we walk with the LiDAR scanner, and then we record the control points. Thank you to our surveying team. And then we align the point cloud with the design model coordinates so that it's ready to compare. This is just like the glimpse of the point cloud. And then when we bring the point cloud data, we compare it with the design model in Navisworks, and that's when we start checking the design model and the point cloud model with respect to all the different trades that we have on site. So once we bring the data in Navisworks, what we have is a BIM track plugin, which we use to create issues. So how we create issues is like as per the tolerance specs. So for the contract specification, what we have is if anything is 3 inches out of tolerance, we need to create BIM track issues and make sure that all the trades are perfectly aligned up. So as you can clearly see in this example that 3 conduits are missing. So what we do is we just create a BIM track. We specify the BIM track. We also specify the name of the scan. And what we do is we create a description and we assign them to a particular trade who is responsible for it. And then we go through the comments and they can check it. And Dustin explained about construction site 360 photos as well. So if trades have any confusion, they can always access those construction site photos and see like what's going on with respect to as-built and the design model. These are just few examples of like tolerance deviations which are there, like mechanical duct out of tolerance, electrical equipment out of tolerance. As you can see here, like the whole mechanical pipe system is out of tolerance. So contractually, all the trades, so I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay. So contractually, like all the trades are responsible for the as-builts, but DPR construction is pushing them here, taking one step further, making them accountable. So we create this Excel sheet where we have all these BIM tracks, number of BIM tracks written. And as you can clearly see in yellow, these are the BIM tracks which trades need to work on. So what we do is we do like weekly coordination meetings, or we meet every day if required, if the trade is like not working properly. This way it ensures that from the smallest conduit to the biggest equipment, everything is as built as per the design model. Happy client? So apart from the contractual specifications, what we do is we are always active to help our project engineering team and also the subcontractor team on site. So we also do like laser scanning, which is not in our scope. And I always say like we're not here to sell, we are here to save. And we build to like drive quality and solve problems. So let me explain a case study. Meet Joshua. He joined DPR Construction last year, and he is a MEP engineer on site. So what he wanted was, he wanted the manual measurement of the chimneys, as you can see in the image. And there are like 15 chimneys in each data hall. And what chimneys are used for is the ventilation and the cooling system inside a data hall. So he was so confused. He had this eureka moment when someone said him that, oh, there's a laser scanning team on site. And that's when we came to the rescue. And I proudly call my team as like a invisible superhero of the site. I know you don't believe me, but I'm going to prove you wrong. So let's talk about chimneys. So why is the scan needed? Each chimney, even though it looks perfect, but it has like a slight variance. And there is a tool called Aptron tube, which is connected to these chimneys, which gives you the accurate measurements with respect to the airflow. So apron tube is designed as per the exact dimension of the chimney. And what happens is when we give the dimensions of the chimney to the trade, they take at least 4 to 6 weeks for delivering those apron tubes on site. And these apron tubes are connected to the SCADA systems, and this is connected to the BMS, and BMS gives you the overall health of a data center. So everything is interconnected. So what we do, we scan it, we give the exact as-built data to the trades. That's how they design the apron tubes. So how we are creating an impact? So first, we are saving time. We are doing this in just a period of 3 hours, delivering the final recap RCS file to the trades. But apart from that, what if there was no laser scanning? What if Joshua didn't have the access to an internal team? Reduce accuracy, no visualization, no data, and possibility of human error, but most important, safety would be compromised because there can be fall accidents. So this is about the time. Now let's talk about money. If there is a wrong measurement of apron tube, what happens is it will delay the project at least 4 to 6 weeks, which results in at least loss of $80,000, since the cost of is for 1 day is $2,000, and we say time is money. Now, what if we didn't catch this apron tube, and what if it was giving wrong measurements? This would result in inefficiencies of the server. It will take more electricity to cool down the system. It will use more fan, so humongous electricity bills, at least 40 to 50K, which is not good for the client. So finally, Joshua agreed, and he said that it's not just about saving time, it's about the accuracy. And apron tube is such a small use case with such a high scale impact. And what I believe is kudos to everyone sitting in this room. We all are invisible superheroes trying to create an impact with the help of laser scanning technology. And we, apart from apron tube, we have so many different use cases. So just feel free to connect and say hi, and I would be happy to go over those. Oh my God, I forgot about this. So this picture, when I joined DPR Construction, Eder became he became my scanning buddy and a brother. Suddenly one day, my manager, he sent him to the office, and that's when he realized he made a big mistake. So I don't know how they photoshopped this stepbrother's picture and attached it to our respective desks, me or the side office and at the office, and this picture was trending like an Instagram reel all over the office, and I was famous in no time. But thank you, that's my time.
All right, so real quick, main takeaway. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the main takeaway is there's a reason I asked this team to come here and for all of us to speak. Myself or Josh Stefano, we can get up here and talk about this stuff, but really wanted to bring the people doing the work to talk about what they do, because it's a great development opportunity for them, and for us to field technology, for us to self-perform that, we need to be able to operate as a team. So some of these individuals have never been to a conference or even spoken on stage, and hopefully it shows our team organization and planning for this, that when you got a good team and you build around a good team, you can do a lot of things. So that is why we're all here on stage. And if there was a main takeaway, is that through good teaming you can do anything. And we also use reality capture for everything, and we are self-performing all of our field technology. And when we're doing this, we can do any project of any size with all the tools and deliver all the use cases that we need to. That being said, what's next? Well, when this project's over, I'm very excited to release these individuals into the wild, to do other projects and do more things and just continue to scale what we do. So we appreciate your time. Thank you. And I think we ended right on time. I did answer the question in here. Someone asked, did we plan for all this work? The answer is yes. Everything you saw 100% was planned for, because we had the opportunity to go do that research early on, visiting the other projects in the program. I was able to come back and build a plan with budgets and resources that accounted for all these individuals that you see here, plus more that are not here. So it's all planned for, no surprises. The only thing that really was a surprise for us was the frequency in which we would get asked for more from our project teams. So where we thought we were delivering X, it was X, Y, Z, because the team was seeing value in what we were doing and wanted more and more and more. So that was very validating for us, that it wasn't, we want less, we want more. So that was the surprise. Thank you.